Okay, let's take another look at some delusional thoughts by some people. Today we're looking at a ex-rapper, or he may still make up songs. I haven't heard anything out of him in decades, but Busta Rhymes here. He's gained a lot of weight. That's neither here nor there. A lot of us do, I guess, in older age and so on, but he's got this crazy bracelet that's so huge around his neck that's fake and so on, but let's see what else is fake and what he wants to bring to a party. He's apparently on some little talk show here, all black people, and he's decided to turn kind of into an evangelist idea and preach out to them some lies and then pile it all up in front of him like he did something. Let's enjoy it, shall we? Now, there's a bunch of them in here, so I'm going to have to stop kind of frequently to stop the stack up. Let's begin.
You ain't never seen a black caveman. I don't give a what history book you want to look into. I don't give a what research you want to do.
Now, he's claiming you can't find a black caveman. Whenever you can actually find a black caveman today. So here he says it again. Hopefully you can hear it a little better.
A black caveman. I don't give a what history book you want to look into. I don't give a what research you want to do. We come from civilization, right?
Yeah. No. You're the last of the people of humanity here to have experienced civilization. There are still some primitives like the Sentinel Island people and the headhunters of Erie and Jaya, and some tribes still left deep in the Amazon and so on, but preemptive to that point, you were just as primitive as those people were. In fact, in a lot of cases, less advanced than they are now, or even they were then. But just because you don't find any caves in West Sub-Saharan Africa doesn't mean that you're not a caveman type person. We'll go deeper into that in just a moment, but he doesn't care what you can do, what research you can do. Oh, it's actually simple to find a research that'll go against single thing that he's going to try to say in a moment. But he's got this little grin on his face like he's pontificating. So let's continue.
We are the makers, the owners, the creams of the planet, the father of civilization, and gods of the universe.
I told you it multiplied quickly, so I've got to go through this or whatever. So they're the original, they're this, they're that, they're the gods of this earth that they didn't even know the planet existed up until recently. They were shown by people who did already know the world existed and didn't know that they didn't know the world existed. Much like the headhunters of Erie and Jaya and so on, they're an unknown people, still primitives to this world, regardless if they have new clothes on now and have been taught by Caucasians everything that they know about it, like the concept of a universe, things along that nature. But he's actually trying to put forth that they are the fathers of civilization. It says it right there at the bottom. And gods of the universe that they didn't even know existed. There's still a lot of places that have no civilization in the bush of sub-Saharan Africa. Pretty sure everybody listening knows this pretty well, to some extent or another. And for him to come pulling out that they were the ones that started it all is really quite revealing. And it shows you jealous claims that they try to make. But he's not through yet, even though he just claimed to be the fathers of all civilization and gods of the universe. It gets deeper and worse. Let's continue.
And there ain't no argument about that.
No, there's extreme argument. In fact, you can't find anything to the contrary except for coming out of an Afrocentric's mouth. Let's continue.
So when you do the research and you find out we ain't never lived in no cave, but the only history that is our origin is we come from the richest parts of the planet.
Yeah, so there aren't any real caves in West Sub-Saharan Africa, or you might have developed to the point of wanting a better residence. But prior to 4400 BC, where there was an admixing event that made blacks have a much larger cranium now, and in their modern form of what we call a human hybrid now, at Asalarman, 4400 BC, we're not sure any dwellings they might have had. After that point, there are some of them that have developed the ability to make a dung hut. This is a little hut made out of sticks and held together with doo-doo. But the doo-doo comes from Caucasian domesticated cows. So prior to this event, one wonders what they would have been able to make any little hut type things out of. But it wasn't anything that anybody could call civilization in any way. You can look this up, research it like he's talking about. You can't. Look up Asalarman, Asselarman, and you'll see at 4400 BC, that's the oldest known modern form of Negroid phenotype that we see like this man we're looking at. But there's a few other ones mentioned there, like Iwuliru and these others. Well, click on Iwuliru and it'll show you a small-brained, football-headed, still extant Homo erectus, or some say Heidelbergensis type, that's there just before 4400 BC. When we've got civilization and everything going on, but actual Homo sapiens coming from at least 315,000 years BC. Let's continue with this next slide.
Our nature coincides with being the fathers and the gods of the planet that exists.
Your nature coincides with being the father of what the hell are you trying to be? This planet that exists. What the hell? Always got this little smirk on his face like, yeah, I'm dreaming up a stupid dream for you to try to believe in. But blacks will try to do this in any way, shape, or form because they really hate the reality of where they come from and where things originate, and that they weren't the originators of civilization or basically anything around them. Anything that you look at around you is made by Caucasians of a derived thing from sciences and math all the way through. But oh wait, he's fixing to try to claim math, science, jewelry, and everything else. Try to keep up here.
There is no before that history.
No, you didn't have any history before then because you had no writing or anything. And it's the same thing when we go with Caucasian people or anybody else on the planet, where we get to a point and it becomes prehistoric. And we still can find and know a lot about those people, but because there's not something written down, most of it's done by inference, and then we can only really correlate a certain amount of data. Sure, there's symbology and things like that that goes and carries on, and because the later point has this associated with it, we can say they may have had some or most of that from before, but it becomes real difficult. Meanwhile, in West Sub-Saharan Africa, there's just a hominid running around, a still extant Homo erectus species. No older than the Holocene. You'll find that in the Asalar. Just wiki it. So it's black people are no older than the end of the last ice age. That's the oldest one they can find there. Strangely, the only skull correlation that we have at all with that connection there, or the closest connective to it, but it's not exact, is Ngorobo. And Ngorobo is a Tanzanian skull, but it dates back to 140,000 BC. Which is already extreme overlap in still extant Homo erectus type form, well after Homo sapiens has already happened at 315,000 BC. So it didn't happen like they show in the classroom and da-da-da type of thing in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, these people here were actually, it appears to be the newest form, and it was all happening because of a hybrid, and that's been proven to show up in their genetics at E1B genetics, and E is a Eurasian and Caucasian haplogroup, and all of its other forms are definitely, and it's derived from Eurasian CT and so on. So at so many levels, this has already been proven to so much more. And then you have archaeology where you can't find anything but the reality of what I've said, and Asalar Man, Iwo, and so on. And that's who they're connected to. And they still have up to 19% unknown ghost hominid in their genetics that came out a few years ago. They finally released the information on, showing you that no, they're not related to anybody else. No one else on the planet's related to them, and surely nobody came from them in any way, because no one else has any of this information, which makes up 20% of their genetics, or 19 if you want to. So it's crazy, but most people looking at that say, well, that 19% is the thing that it was right before Asalar Man, and that's how much Homo erectus type form they still have left that no one else has on the planet. They may have something else in there mixed in that everybody else has on the planet that's in our genetics from way back, because we are similarly related. But I showed a recent video where real scientists now have come out and said that the foundation of humans leaving Africa and everything are not a connected people, and that the whole out of Africa theory is already changed from 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0, 3.2. They're fixing to try to make up a 4.0, and in the process of looking at that, and things like black people's genetics aren't like anybody else on the planet and so on, and how far that dates back, that they have to say, well, this is before they're even humans. This is whenever they're pre-human type people, that everybody had a split, and it looks like it's way back at some 2 million years ago to 7 million years ago. And it teeters on that concept too, because if it goes back to the one before that, it's like 22 to 25 million years ago, and now we're not even a primate type thing, but kind of a shrew kind of primate thing that came out of the destruction of the dinosaurs at 65 million years ago. Of course, all of this science is all pooled up from knowledge that Caucasians have gathered about the planet that we all live in, and Blax really weren't involved with that in any way, shape, or form, but he's trying to involve it, and watch what he says here in a minute.
That's from the inception of our being. So I'm wearing this that our ancestors taught us that we need to be buried in the tombs with.
That strangely sounds like he said his ancestors said to be buried with your stuff in a tomb. That sounds conspicuously like now he's going to try to claim we was Egyptians, because, correct me if I'm wrong, there are no ancient tombs where people put stuff on in West Sub-Saharan Africa. That's a thing that Caucasians can be found doing all the way back over 40,000 BC, well back into time from then, where they're purposely buried, but then also buried with stuff to go with them in the afterlife. This whole concept of religion and everything else.
And that I'm going to pass down like our ancestors passed down the rich, wealthy sciences, jewels, math.
So he tried to claim sciences, maths, jewels. He's really just thinking about everything he thinks is shiny and real cool that he wished that they even knew. There's no ancient math in West Sub-Saharan Africa. There's no ancient jewelry. There's no ancient civilization there. In fact, it's being brought to them while we're talking right now by Caucasians who, believe it or not, are, other than having to pay millions here and so on, are doing that at satellite places all around the world, bringing everybody into civilization. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is sending satellites up in that float around our planet, and everybody gets free internet, or it works out however it works out in the country you're from. So what does he have here? Jules mathematics. He's trying to claim the sciences. There is no science of West Sub-Saharan Africa. There is no truth in voodoo or anything like that. It's past pathetic when they start making all these claims, but he's not through yet. Science, Jules mathematics, and that guy just said the abundance, the highly admixed light guy over here, the abundance. Whenever I grew up with Africa all starving and couldn't feed themselves. Was it still that way? Yeah, there's still that problem. And then again, they all die from sicknesses and stuff too. So we've taken whitey cracker medicine magic over there and it's pretty much saved everybody. So now their population is blooming. And if they didn't have enough food to feed everybody before, now they really don't. So now, I guess, we're caught in the idea of a cargo cult, where we have to go around and drop off cargo.
Mathematics, all of that abundance of flash, they passed it down to us. I'm gonna pass that down to my seeds. Yeah.
Yeah, so nobody passed it down to him, but Caucasians are passing it down to them. Everything they've learned about history and things like that have all been taught to them by Caucasians. Every form of math and so on. If you'll remember, just a couple of years ago, I had trapped in a video where they tried to claim that water and math, air, and a few other things were racist because white people invented it, or they're used to being swimming where black people aren't, or that they can fly now, and that's not a black thing. So because it's not a black thing, that made it become racist. During that conversation, we realized that, well, now they've started calling everything racist that doesn't involve them. So they've gone through the looking glass, and aren't we all just sick of this? Well, that was like 3.5 years ago now. So we can imagine what we've been through in the last 3.5 years and the George Floyd debacle and all the other things that went along as to how this is really disgusting. And we come out the end of it with them trying to claim that it's our ancestors, that they were the people that created all the math and everything, and they're the gods of this universe that they didn't even know existed if white people didn't tell them about it. How does that work out in your mind? Not too well, but it works out in their mind because in their low IQ and envy, they can believe anything to try to make a lie come true.
Ain't never seen a black caveman.
No, actually, whenever you're looking at the early slavers and all that type of thing, you're looking at caveman-related people. In fact, here you're actually looking at a caveman hybrid type that is wearing new clothes and things now. I don't know how much legally you want to give time before you take a caveman out of the cave and then all of a sudden say, well, he's not a caveman anymore. But I'm willing to believe it's much more than 5 or 6 generations, or even 100, or 300 or 400. For when it happened naturally to the people that actually are the heralds of civilization, I'm willing to believe it took hundreds of generations to get to the point where we are now. How about you? But no, they were just gifted all this stuff. And so they make up these weird, stupid lies that try to interject them. You can see these weird smiles on his face because he's just about to bust loose with, we invented science, we invented math, we did everything, we're gods of this earth and gods of the universe. What else did he try to put off in all that? We made jewelry and everything. There's no jewelry in that either. They have no connection to any of those inventions or the starting of any of that. Must be pathetic, but what would only make it worse is if you were to go around saying this, recorded in front of everybody, your beliefs and delusions, and everybody's watching, and you're making yourself the clowns on the world stage by your own hands. People are trying to stop you, but they can't stop you because it's racist if you tell them that, well, you're lying and it makes you look bad. They don't want to hear that. They like the lie better. Let me know what you think down below. Busta Rhymes. Busted.